It was good. This is your man Propagate right here. And I have a guest. Wendy Rose Williams is here to speak a little bit about a lot of different things under the umbrella of spiritual, and has a new book as well. And welcome back, Miss Wendy Rose Williams. All ears are on you.
Getting to be here. And what I wanted to share with you is just this amazing experience that I had over the last 8 years that led to writing and publishing my third book, which is Regression Healing II, Joe and Marilyn. And yes, it is about that famous Joe. It is about Joe DiMaggio, and it is about Marilyn Monroe. And what happened was back in October, fall of 2016, I started having all these experiences where I could really hear Joe DiMaggio and sense him around me, and I could see Marilyn Monroe. And I was working with a wonderful spiritual teacher at the time, and she texted me one day and said, "Joe wants to speak with you." I kind of felt like I was being called to the principal's office in a way, because it wasn't something I wanted to deal with just because of them being so well known. But when I got that text and she asked, are you ready? And no, I wasn't ready, but I knew it was time. So I went and meditated for half an hour and spoke with Joe DiMaggio, who passed on in 1999, so connected with his higher self, with his soul. And he told me who I had been in that timeline, because I was suspecting, based on all the way back to childhood experiences with him. And what he said to me was, he confirmed and said, "You do have a past life as me. It's actually a past parallel life, because we were both incarnated. We were both alive at the same time for about 40 years. And he just wanted me to step to the plate and just deal with the reality, because I was dealing with a lot of physical challenges and things that just did not make sense. And they were from his lifetime, and they were injuries specifically from his baseball career. And I know that might just sound so far out there, and I'd love to hear questions about that so I can try and make sense of that. So what my spiritual teacher communicated to me was, she was happy to just support me with whatever I chose to do with the information, which again just sounded so fantastical, yet I knew it was true. And it's just so important to be able to be in our hearts and just be able to discern what our own truth is. It's not about what anyone else tells us. It's not about what we read or see on television. It's just, when I had that half-hour meditation after she had texted me, I knew what the truth was. So I wanted more information. So I chose, being a past life regressionist myself, being an energy healer, I chose a new friend that I had, and she was very grounded, just very wise, very down to earth. And she was a trained quantum healing hypnotherapy past life regressionist. She had trained with Dolores Cannon, and I didn't think she was a sports fan. So that kind of checked all the boxes of someone that I would want to go to have a session to just learn more, because I really wanted to get in touch with my own higher self, my own soul. I really wanted to talk with my guides and just sort out, well, what do I do with this? Why is this coming up? Why is this important? And when things come up like this that can just feel so amazing, potentially so hard to take, it's just, a great moment. Like what is your go-to? How do you ground and clear your own energy? How do you make sense of the truth for yourself? And do you have a healing modality, that you love and know works well for you? Like I know past life regression works really well for me. So I had the session and I wrote questions beforehand, and I did not ask anything specifically about Joe DiMaggio or anything to do with that, because I didn't want to influence the regressionist either. And I just wanted to leave it open. It's really important when you're having these sorts of sessions to let your higher self, let your guides, let the divine really help you, and just release expectations. So I did have one kind of softball question in amongst a lot of other questions. And I simply asked, have I ever been a professional athlete? And it didn't matter what questions I wrote because we just went straight to, as soon as the session started, we went straight to Joe's childhood. And it was really interesting to be just, in the body of, and just seeing from the perspective of this little boy who grew up with this big family and grew up in Northern California. And it started with him as a 9-year-old boy, and he was looking down as the past life regressionist, as the healer led me through it. And she says, well, look down at your body, and what's your body like? And I'm describing being this, scrappy little boy, wishing he was bigger, wishing he was bigger and stronger, because he was one of the littlest kids that was out there with his older brothers and with just neighborhood kids playing stickball. And he talked about them playing on the corner sand lot. And I didn't know that expression. It was really interesting because he just used different vocabulary than I do. And I didn't know what a sandlot was. I grew up in Quebec, and I just was not familiar with these corner lots. There's no house on it, and it's just sandy soil, and there might be some grass too. So he was just describing the corner sandlot. But when I looked it up and asked a friend who grew up in California after the session, I said, what does the term sandlot mean to you, if anything? And she confirmed it, and I found it. I found it by looking it up. So during that first session, the past life regressionist just led me through the lifetime, and led me all the way through from being a 9-year-old boy, which is where it first started, right to the death scene. And Joe DiMaggio lived into his mid-80s. He had a good long life. And what came up was just the most important scenes. And he talked about his first marriage, and just his joy. Well, first he talked about getting drafted to the Yankees and how that all came about, and having played minor league ball for the San Francisco Seals. And then one of his brothers had been fortunate enough to get on that team, and so his brother got him onto that team when there was an opening, and talked the coaches into giving him a tryout. So that's where he got his start. And then from there, he was so overjoyed to be drafted to the New York Yankees. And he played, it was his favorite team, and he played his entire career for the New York Yankees. And he also talked about how wonderful it was to fall in love and to get married to his first wife, Dorothy. And also just his joy with their son being born. So just, these big moments in life, and just the emotion that came through around those. He'd also described a lot of childhood things, of what it was like growing up in this big, noisy, wonderful Italian immigrant family. And he was one of 9 children, and his dad was a fisherman. I did not know any of these things. I was certainly, I knew the name. I knew he'd played baseball. I knew he played for the Yankees. I knew he was married to Marilyn Monroe. That was about it. That was about the limit of my knowledge as Wendy. So it was just really interesting to just hear him talking about his life and the highs and lows. He talked about, and I could really feel the emotion. I just really cried when he talked about how sad it was and what a big decision it was for he and his first wife, Dorothy, to choose to divorce. And he talked about how serious that was. But they couldn't work out their differences. She was very unhappy once their son was born, because he was still traveling extensively, playing for the Yankees, because I mean he had to. That was the career, and you're not at home with your wife and children. And it's a long season in baseball. So he was gone for up to 9 months of the year, and it just created just a division between them. So he talked about the how seriously they both took it, because he was Catholic and just was not feeling good about divorcing, but they did it for their own peace of mind, and they did not want to be constantly fighting in front of their son. So they were really working to put their son's best interests above theirs too. So that was something that came through. And then he also talked about World War II coming. And that was really a big deal. I mean, you could just so feel the energy, the upset, the horror of him sharing his memories with my past life regressionist of what that was like to live through, realizing that World War II was underway and that the United States had joined that war effort. And Joe chose to volunteer. And I had not known that, me personally as Wendy. And just a lot of detail came through about that too. And because of him being well known, I was able to fact check some of it, and it was all accurate. But what you can't know from reading the history is the emotion around it. So that was a lot of the releasing that was going on. And he talked about being put into like a sort of like a public relations type of role, where basically he was used to boost morale for the troops. So he was sent around to talk with and give talks to various groups of young men. And he talked about looking out in those groups, and just how horrible it was to him to see so many teenagers and to see so many young men, really, really young men. And he knew they were not likely to be coming home again. So you can hear just the emotion just comes up again for me to just realize something like that. So he that came up in the session. And also, it really was a sacrifice that he chose to volunteer. And because he was at the height of his career, and he was realistic, he didn't know if he'd ever be able to play baseball again, if he'd be able to get back in again. But he was able to. So he explained that too, and talked about that. And some physical healing came up for me that was pretty astonishing. And that had come up outside of the session. And I had two surgeries on my right foot in this lifetime. I mysteriously had this. It's like my two right feet, my 2 feet were quite different one from another. And the podiatrist said to me when I went to him with all this pain in my right foot, and he said, "Did you ever play sports? Did you ever, go on point as a ballerina? Did you play soccer, baseball? Did you do something very different with your 2 feet? Because your right foot is so different than your left foot." And we had to do two surgeries on it, as I said. I mysteriously had several toes dislocate on my right foot, which was really painful. I did not fall. I did not have an accident. I just could not think of anything that would have caused this. So when I meditated on it after I had that prelim surgical consult with the podiatrist, and we had scheduled the surgery, I meditated on it and asked my guides what was going on with my foot. because I had a strong instinct it was something to do with a past life. And their answer to me in that meditation was Google a photograph, look up on Google Images or somewhere, look up a picture of Joe DiMaggio at bat. And I'm like, what? I did I hear my guides right? What are they talking about? I don't get it. I just don't get it. So I finished the meditation and I went to the computer. And the minute I saw a picture of Joe DiMaggio at um, batting, I got it because he had an unusual stance. He was very tall, long-legged, like a lot of players, and he had this really super wide stance where his left foot was all the way in the front and his right foot was way behind him because he's getting ready to power hit. I mean, he was well known for his home runs and his power hitting, and his right foot was dug all the way into the ground on the toes. And I'm sure cleats were not so great back when he was playing, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. And the minute I saw it, I'm like, there's the dislocated toes. There's the right foot bunion. There's what's going on with my right foot. So I just started getting some energy healing release from that, and then did have those surgeries, as I mentioned. So that was really interesting to have that come up. So that's the type of thing where you can be going back to a past life of origin to heal something in your body now. So it truly can be physical healing as well as emotional healing. Some of the major emotional healing that I detailed in the book, because I went on to have 9 different sessions. Please go ahead and laugh at me. I think that is so, it was just so hard to accept such a famous past life because Joe was just beloved. I mean, he was not only a great, one of the baseball greats, but he just became an American hero. The combination of that war service that he volunteered for and his relationship and then marriage to Marilyn Monroe. So, he just was really, really well known. So I had this amazing first session where all these things came through and I received a lot of healing from it. And then I needed more information. I'm like, wow, what if this is an ego trick? What if it's like an archetype for me? What if I wasn't Joe, but I, instead was someone that knew him, maybe one of the not so well-known brothers. Although interestingly, they did end up with 3 DiMaggio brothers. Joe and 2 of his brothers all played Major League American baseball, which I think is pretty unusual. So, and their father was just like, oh, what is this weird game? He wanted them to be fishermen like him. He just did not understand his sons just getting into the American dream, the American pastime of baseball. So different things just kept coming up in the different sessions. But again, it was really hard for me to believe. And what turned the tide for me was the perfect client was referred to me. And this young woman, she was in her late teens at the time, from Western Europe. We never met, but she was referred to me and we had a phone consult because I had been told that she seemed to have memories as Marilyn Monroe dating back to her childhood. And she was struggling. She was having some issues with anxiety, with depression. She just did not know what to do with that famous past life either. So she was referred to me for a past life regression session. So I did a phone consult with her because I knew English was not her first language, and I wanted to make sure we could communicate well enough together. And also, I just wanted to make sure that because of her young age, I just wanted to make sure that she was realistic and understood what the session would do for her and would not do for her. So I wanted to talk that through. I did not say a word about Joe DiMaggio because it wasn't appropriate to. If I was going to be accepting her as a client, and if she wanted to work with me, that needed to be off the table. So I made sure it was off the table. We did 2 sessions together, and they were incredible because she went immediately back into her past life as Marilyn. I certainly did not ask her to go there, did not lead her there. What I use as a prompt for clients is to go to the time and place with the most healing and information and uplift for your life now. That is the prompt I give. So it's undirected, and it's up to that client's higher self, up to their soul, and to their guides, because that's who's architecting the experience and the healing and knows what's best for them. But she, like me, didn't matter because she'd submitted some questions ahead. I invited her to do that of just some issues and questions that she had, and some problems, as I mentioned, the anxiety and the depression. And but she went, straight into that past life both times, both sessions. And there was some time between the 2 sessions, and I didn't assume that she would go back into that life again, because I thought, perhaps we had cleaned it all up and she'd be exploring other things, but there still was a lot of energy to release there. So she went into childhood. She went through, she had 3 marriages, Marilyn did, in her lifetime. The first was as a teenager. She had a really, really challenging life. And her mother was mentally ill and was never able to really care for her properly. So she was with a friend of the family for part of the time. She was in different foster care. She did not know who her father was. So it was a really, really tough period growing up. Because she just really didn't have roots and did not have an easy time. So she went through a lot of that, and a lot of tears, released, and just let go of a lot of that. Very courageous woman, courageous soul. And then she went through and talked about her different marriages. So she was married briefly as a teenager, kind of a marriage of convenience to help give her some financial stability. And just relationship and emotional stability. And that marriage did not last very long. And then she was married to Joe DiMaggio as her second husband. And she took me through that experience. She talked about just some of the joy and the detail. They dated for a long time. They wanted to. There was a pretty big age difference between them. Joe was 12 years older than Marilyn, so she was in her late 20s. Mid to late 20s when they started dating, and her career was just starting to take off, and he was newly retired. He was in his mid 40s and had retired from baseball. So they went kind of slowly, just to make sure, were they meant to be friends or were they meant to marry? So they dated for a long time, and then they did marry, and she walked me through what that was like. I kind of suspected something had gone wrong. And she brought it up in more detail than Joe did. He was just sharing when I was having the sessions as Joe. It was just the angst. It was just the sadness, the heartbreak that they had divorced, but he didn't talk about the specifics of why. And she did. And she talked about the fact that he regrettably struck her one time. He hit her one time. That is never okay. And for me to hear that, I was just horrified, absolutely horrified. And she talked about not only the physical pain that it caused her, but the emotional pain. And she said it just triggered her back into having been abused as a child. And so she just couldn't trust him anymore, and she divorced him. So they were married for less than a year. She also talked about the humiliation of, she was filming at the time that this incident occurred, and he struck her across her shoulder and kind of the side of her neck, and like maybe like the lower jaw, and she had to show makeup and have the makeup department cover this up, and it was clearly you could see it was a handprint. And she just talked about how humiliating that was for her. And it just hurt her on such a deep level at multiple levels. So I had to hear that and go through what that was like for her. She said, as the session progressed, she said, I forgive you. I forgive you. I just want to be at peace. I just want to put it in the past. And I so appreciate that you honored my request, because Marilyn had said to Joe, it was very interesting. I think she had a feeling that she might not have a very long life. And she said to Joe, if I predecease you, if I die before you, I would so appreciate if you would put fresh flowers on my grave every week. That would just mean the world to me. He did that. I did that for 20 years. And she's buried in LA. And Joe did take, and I had memories of walking down the sidewalk as Joe and taking the flowers, taking the roses to Marilyn and putting them in the mausoleum where she's buried. And more often, I was having them delivered by a florist, because I wasn't in town. I didn't ever live in LA. But that was part of how she forgave him, because he made good on her request to do that. So it just was an incredible healing for me to be forgiven by this perfect client to have been sent to me. And it was really interesting, because I had to work really hard to keep my therapist hat on, because she'd be saying, well, Joe, you remember this and you remember that. And I just was pretty deadpan with her. I'm like, Joe, who? Who are you referring to? Who are you talking about? Please give me the last name. Please spell it out. And she's getting a little frustrated with me. And I said, I just need to keep my therapist hat on to be in the best service to you, because I didn't want to have a conversation as Joe and Marilyn when she was, in therapeutic trance and having her sessions. So that was how the story played out. And just to be able to release that energy between them and to be forgiven was huge. And then the biggest emotional release for me as Joe, because it's a shared soul, came not during the sessions with the Marilyn client, but it came when I talked about, as Joe, not being able to forgive myself for her death. If you do not know that history, she died under mysterious circumstances in August of 1962. And what was so heartbreaking about that for Joe was they had reconciled. Marilyn had married after she had divorced Joe, and a couple of years on her own. She had then married Arthur Miller, the playwright, and they were married for about 5 years. And after Joe and Arthur had divorced, she got back in touch with Joe, and their friendship resumed. It just rekindled, and their romance rekindled. And they were making plans to remarry. That meant everything to Joe, to me. You can hear it. It still brings up emotion, because it was his chance to get it right. And it was his chance to really have a happy marriage with her, and to realize who she was. And she was meant to be a star, and she was meant to be on screen, because what he had done in the first marriage was he just didn't have a model for, how do I deal with this? How do I support this rising starlet wife? He didn't know what to do with that. So his go-to, the only model he knew, was she should be a housewife, and he was happy to support her, and he was expecting her to be at home. And she was just driven. She needed to be on film. I mean, she was so talented. She wasn't just the dumb blonde that often gets portrayed, because that was kind of the slot she got put into. But she was a comedian. She really had comedic talent. She could sing, she could dance. I mean, she worked really, really hard at her craft to, be the best all-around entertainer that she could be, as she made films. So Joe is over the moon to be getting remarried. And instead, what happens is she dies. They have two very different perspectives on what led to her death. And you'll need to read the book for that. I'll just tell you, it's two different perspectives of what Joe believes happened and what Marilyn believes happened. So that's interesting. And he ends up burying her on what was to be their wedding day, on their second wedding. So to have a wedding day become a funeral, there was so much emotional angst from that. He then was alone for 40 years. He never would allow himself to have another romantic relationship. So it just was a really, really big deal. And the reason that he buried her, she did not have family, as I mentioned. She had a half sister, and he contacted the sister and said, "Would you like me to take care of her affairs, and would you like me to take care of burying her?" And the sister, with great relief, said, "Yes, please." So he did. He made it be, he had it as a very small funeral, and hired massive security to keep most people out. So it was kept to, I think, like 30, 35 people. Thousands of people wanted to attend, tried to attend, and he just was not going to let it be turned into a media circus. So, because as I said, she just died under shocking circumstances, and it was just unknown what exactly had happened. But it was a scandal. It was a scandalous death, in her mid-30s. So Joe locked that one down pretty darn well, which personally I agree with, and think was just the best move, to honor her memory in an appropriate way. So to honor her life. So that's what the book is about. And you can just read in detail those sessions. I am so just have been blown away by people commenting and telling me that they received healing from the book. And that they could feel some emotional healing from a similar circumstance in their lifetime, because there's a lot of just really raw emotion in it. It's not written in any manner to be sensational. It's very private past life regression sessions of mine, and as well as of the other client, whose identity is appropriately blinded, and she gave me permission to share them, and that's what this story is about. So I'd love to take any questions, any comments. What can I make more clear? What can I help share? Okay, so first question, do we work out karma from a previous life? Oh, that's a fantastic question. Yes, I see karma as a teaching tool, as something to learn from. I don't see it as punishment, but oh my gosh, it can feel like it when we are in just the depths of it and just struggling to release heartbreak, to forgive another, to forgive ourselves. It's just, and not forgiving just leads to, it can lead to so much physical pain, emotional pain, heartbreak. You're just stuck. It's like you cannot find peace within yourself. And certainly, I was able to move much more into that place from having gone through these sessions and having had the exact soul, the exact woman who was the Marilyn to my Joe, to say she forgave me. It changed. It really changed everything. So, and I know she felt a lot of peace from it too. And she was able to release a lot of anxiety and depression from that lifetime. That was the focus of her sessions. So karma, I just see as those unfinished business, unfinished lessons coming back around again. It might be literally with the same person, or it might be a place that triggers you, and it's just deja vu, and the old energies coming up, or it might be a situation, it might be an experience, it can be a different person involved, but it's like, oh my goodness, why is this coming up again? Why do I know I just haven't mastered this lesson? So great question. Can an undesirable event in a past life create conflict in the current one in the form of fears, etc.? So yes, absolutely. I mean, think of fears and phobias. If we've got fears that don't seem to make sense from this lifetime, or phobias, and there can be a lot of them. I mean, it might be a fear of heights, fear of water, a fear of dogs, a fear of intimacy, a fear of being enclosed in an elevator, or just any sorts of enclosed spaces. Those often can relate to something that's happened in a past life. But because it's at the past life is at an unconscious or a subconscious level, but we in our conscious daily life, it's just like, oh gosh, or fear of flying, fear of driving. I've had a number of clients that have come forward that have fears around driving, or being on airplanes. It can be specific or it can be general. And I cannot tell you how many train engineers and train conductors I have met that's what the past life was that was leading to the current day fear around driving, or being a passenger in the car too. It can be, it can be that big. From something that had happened back when the person was a train conductor or a train engineer, or some other sort of a transportation or wagon driver, or horse and buggy, or earlier forms of transportation, and it's now showing up now. So yes, that absolutely can happen. And then when we're able to get to that lifetime of origin, we're able to just release that fear, that phobia that's not serving us, and just able to let it go. So it's a big deal. Any other questions or comments? Does reincarnation exist, and is there a reincarnation trap on the other side? So it's a personal belief. My personal belief is yes, that reincarnation is reality. If you'd asked me that question 15 years ago, I would have said, "What are you talking about?" Because I wasn't raised that way. I didn't have that belief system until I started to have the direct experiences bringing it up for me. There's no better teacher than direct experience. And so it's my personal belief, and many people in the world do believe in reincarnation. My belief is that reincarnation is our soul, eternal soul, wanting to learn lessons, have experiences, to be able to progress, wanting adventures. So we choose, my belief is we choose where and when to incarnate, and on planet, off planet, whatever dimension. I believe that we just have wide open field of choice there. And I see it as a free will choice. I personally do not believe in a reincarnation trap. I have seen many videos and heard that raised many times of don't go to the light. That's a trap. And you'll just be recycled and thrown back in against your will into another lifetime and you'll never get off this hamster wheel. I've kind of heard the reincarnation trap expressed that way. Personally, I don't believe that's true. I believe that we have free will where and when to incarnate. And I believe that we're meant to go on home. And certainly you can have different belief system than mine. I believe we go on home, up to the light, up to divine source, divine love, where we come from. I personally do believe in God. Use whatever word, whatever term is right for you. You know, for some people it's nirvana, for some people it's the universe, summerlands, whatever it might be. But I believe we're meant to, after we drop our body, because our body is temporary, I believe we're meant to go on up to the light, and that's where we heal. That's where we learn. That's where we put it into perspective. That's where we debrief, and we have the benefit of meeting with wise elders and guides that help us understand the lifetime and how we did with it. I believe we have a life review. I think the movie, there was an old movie with Albert Brooks and Defending Your Life. And I think that movie gets it pretty darn right. So that's a good one to look for. Meryl Streep, I believe. It's Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep. And there's a lot of contrast between their experiences as they go on home and they've now passed on. And there's just a lot of contrast. But that's a good one to look up. It's got great sense of humor to it too. And so that's my personal belief. So I don't believe in there being a reincarnation trap. I do not see the light as a trap. I see the light as uplifting. I see it as what we're made of. I mean, we're made of light. We're made of love. So that's my perspective on that. So any other questions or comments? Do you think people can be reincarnated as an animal or as a tree, etc.? Personally, yes. And I know that might really stretch your belief system. I see it as a free will choice. And I've had plenty of clients. And again, the prompt I give is go to the time and place with the most healing and information and uplift for your life today. I don't say go back to your most recent life as Cleopatra or as a tree or as a non-human form. It's just, you heard what the prompt is. So I personally believe that we can choose any type of life form. It might be human. It might be in another dimension. I've had multiple people go back to lifetimes as mermaid, merman, so mer people. And I've had people go back to lives as a tree, as a cliff, and being part of a cliff. And they just were like that important rock that was like helping hold this cliff together. And they did that for thousands of years, just helping hold the earth. And they did it to learn patience. Because then the question always is, what did you learn from that lifetime? Why did you choose that lifetime? What did you learn from it? And a lot of the mer people talk about loving the strength of their body and just the fluidity of how they were in the ocean and how they could move so well. So a lot of times we're able to bring in some physical healing from those types of lifetimes. I had one gal who remembered being a swordfish. So she was a large fish. I had one gal who, when I was, we'd finished viewing the past life, and it was a human life on Earth. It was 1800s. We'd finished with that. And I invited her to leave her body, and I invited her to go on home. And I was expecting her to go on up to the light, and she taught me something different. And there was silence for a long time. So I just needed to ask her what she was experiencing. And she said, well, I'm piloting my craft and I'm taking my very small spaceship back up to the mothership and I'm going home. You asked me to go on home and I'm thrilled to do that. That's exactly what I'm doing. And she described going home to another planet and that she had to get in line and wait to get into the larger spacecraft to then have the ride on back to her home planet, which I just thought was fascinating. So that's what she related to as home when I'd asked her to go on home. So you just have to keep an open mind and just keep asking appropriate, respectful questions and just follow that client's journey. I've had people recall past lives as fairies and talk about what that was like for them. Just a few days ago, I had a client recall being a giant, and she talked about just her strength and what that was like, and that she knew that remembering that past life was to help her move more back into her personal power in this lifetime, and to just know that she had wonderful personal strength, that she could kind of call on that past life. I've had people go back to lives as cavemen or cavewoman, and they did not yet have speech. So it's really, I've had people go back to water planets and describe just how easy and delightful. I've had people go back to lifetimes on Mars and talk about all the wars that have been there, because Mars is known as the planet of war. Earth is too. I've had people go back to lives on Venus and talk about it as the planet of love, and how finding their past life or past lives there just made them in this lifetime, made it easier for them to feel that they could be kinder, be more loving, and to remember that origin place and those past life experiences. So I've had people, and I've had other hypnotherapists talk about people with past lives as birds, and would talk about a lifetime as an eagle, or some other bird. So I truly see it as a free will choice, and that our soul wants to learn certain things, and then plans the lifetime and meets with guides that advise them, and then starts talking with soul family, your soul group that you've incarnated with many times, and just kind of starts to plan out the play, so to speak. If you see the lifetime as a play that we're going to act out, and say, okay, so I'm going to do this and I need to learn this. So can you play this role in this lifetime? Can you be my spouse or my child or my best friend or my worst enemy, or that neighbor that I just can't get along with, or this wonderful boss or teacher or horrible one, depending on what we want to learn. So that would be some of the things that have come up in that area. All right, next question. Do you think aliens, non-human, exist? And isn't God non-human? Yes, personally, I do believe that non-humans exist. I think that's a lot of hubris on our part to think that we're the only living possibility and race. I believe many of us have had past lives on other planets, and it just depends on your perspective. I see you can call those galactic family members if you get comfortable with it, or from your strict lens of now in human form, you can consider that alien. Well, it's alien because it's not on Earth, and that's your memory and your experience right now. But as I said, just many people have incarnated on other planets, because Earth is known in the galaxy as the hard duty station, because we're a free will planet, and we have war on this planet, we have poverty, We have all kinds of very difficult, lower vibrational, dense energies that are not love, that are not peace, that are not joy. So most souls, what I've been shown, and I've heard from other hypnotherapists too, and other spiritual teachers, most souls, when they're first choosing to incarnate, they choose an easier planet than Earth to incarnate on first, like a water planet. Or they might choose, a short life, a simple, straightforward, and then, maybe working your way through school is another great analogy too. You've got preschool, and then pre-K and kindergarten, and then you work your way through the primary grades, and then middle school or junior high, high school. You may go on to junior college or four-year college. You may go on to grad school. So it's just kind of analogous of the different lifetimes that we can choose. And Earth is stunningly beautiful and amazing. And there's so much we can learn here. So certainly, many souls want to come here and want to progress here and have experiences here. So that's my take on that. And second half of the question was, what I see God as non-human. Personally, I would see God as an energy, as an amazing consciousness, a very high vibrational consciousness of love. I really see God as love, and just loving us so much that, and I also see God, I know many say male, I kind of see God as a beautifully balanced energy. So you can use the term mother, father, God. So I see mother, father, God as loving us so much that they're allowing us to live out our choices, some of which are not playing out very well. But boy, do we get to learn from them and to progress from them and to hopefully just do better and be better and raise our vibration and frequency. I believe Earth has a consciousness. I see Mother Earth, I see Gaia as a living, sentient being, and that she has raised her vibration and frequency to 5D, to the fifth spiritual dimension and higher, and is inviting us all to do the same. Okay, next question or comment. Have any of my clients spoken about the appearance of Earth from outer space, or did I see it in my near-death experience? Yes, I have had clients speak about that. The one client example that I shared where she was um, went on off to her home planet. She didn't say a lot about Earth because she was more focused on, she was so delighted to be back piloting her craft. She was so excited about that. And she was describing all the buttons and levers and how it all worked. And just, she was so focused on getting back to the larger ship and then getting on back to her home planet, which was in the Pleiades. I remember during my near-death experience seeing Earth. When I left my body in the hospital, I was bleeding out. I had an aorta that burst when I was pregnant, and the aorta, the fundus at the top of the uterus, burst. So I was in the hospital bed and waiting for surgery the next day. And I was trying to visualize the best possible outcome for my surgery the next day, the next morning. And the minute I did that, I popped right out of my body and I went back in pure soul form, and I left my body. And I was able to make the distinction. It took me a little bit to work out, okay, that's my body in the bed and I'm back in pure soul form. And wow, I feel amazing because no more pain, not scared to death anymore for myself or the baby. And I was only interested in following the white light. So I left that body with just like, no. I was like, oh, she's fine. I was just so casual about it. Not fine at all, but from a soul perspective, just fine. and I wanted to follow the white light. So I saw like a triangle of white light going up through the ceiling of my hospital room, and I just wanted to follow that. So that's what I did, and went up higher and higher, faster and faster. And I did look back over my shoulder at one point back at Earth, and I could see, I don't know the correct term for it. It's like, I think astronauts call it like the overview effect or something like that, where you get up far enough that you can see the curve of the planet. And it can be seen from satellites too. And you can just see the beauty of it. And you can see all the water. You can see the dark blue and the different shades of water. And then you can see land. You can see the different continents and the green. You can just see it. And I remember seeing Earth and the curve of it and thinking, oh, she's so beautiful. We've got to take better care of her. And that was kind of my only thought. And then I kept on going because I needed to get back home. I just wanted to get back up to the light. So that's some of the experiences in that area. Okay, and I think I'm missing the whole question. Is there any way to put the whole question back up? I'm just seeing what shape was Earth. Oh, okay, that was the previous one. Very good. So what shape was Earth? It got to the point where I saw it when I looked back as I was going back home during that near-death experience. I could see it was round. I could see the rounding of it. So yes, Galileo had it right. The Earth is round. It is not flat. I mean, we've certainly proven that again and again. Satellites, astronauts, a million ways, but Galileo just being ahead of his time and trying to explain that he was able to show and to see and to prove that the Earth indeed was round and not flat. It's not like we were going to fall off the edge by exploring it with ships. So, but that's what I saw. All right, and then question. Are beings from other dimensions here on Earth with us now? And why is the light white? Okay. Are beings from other dimensions here on Earth with us now? Absolutely. Because as I mentioned, many people have lived on other planets. I've lived approximately half of my lives on other planets and in other dimensions and on Earth. So approximately 1,300 lives on Earth and approximately 1,300 lives on other planets and other dimensions. So technically, you can consider me an alien. I think a more accurate term would be I'm what's called a balanced hybrid soul, because of kind of like 50-50 lives here on Earth and approximately half the lives in other locations. If you want to go straight up alien, with looks very different from us, does not look like a human body, and are they here on Earth? I believe yes, that there are some wonderful, highly evolved beings, galactic beings from other planets that are here helping Earth, helping mankind raise our vibration and frequency, because we've got to do some things differently. We've got to take better care of this planet. We've got to take better care of the animals, the trees, the waters, and we've got to live more lightly on the Earth. And she's got to cool herself off to remain habitable for not only us, but for everything and everyone else on the planet. Do I believe there's going to be first contact, meaning alien beings coming in from other planets looking alien? Absolutely. I believe that's been happening for years, for decades. But because people have not been ready to deal with that. I mean, it comes up occasionally through a cute, sweet movie like E.T., I mean, look at what a runaway hit E.T. was. So, but I believe that there's been um, a lot of that information has just been deep sixed and put under lock and key because the decision was made that the average Joe, the American public, and other publics were not ready to deal with it and would be very, very frightened by it. So I'm here to say, let's just be in our hearts and just be ready. And I believe that things will be happening. I believe our vibration and frequency is going to be greatly raised by an amazing big flash of light that will be coming in, likely through a solar flare, that's going to help us raise our consciousness. And then we'll be more prepared for things like that. Because Earth, I mean, come on, we're part of a galaxy. We're part of a system. We're not a no planet functions completely on its own. When you kind of look at the bigger picture. So I think I hit the first half of the question. Did I hit on the second one? There might have been a 2-in-1 with that one. Oh, why is the light white? Okay. Let me just ask the light itself. Let me just speak as the light. I am white. I am white simply because it's the highest vibrational energy available in the universe. And white includes all the other colors within its spectrum. White is not the absence of color and of contrast, it actually includes it all. So that's why the light is white. And also just most people relate to it in a good way, and they just they appreciate the light. But let's appreciate the dark too, because we need the contrast, and you don't want it to be bright white light 24 hours a day. That is not restful. That is not good for people's psyche. Think of what goes on in Alaska and places, way up in Scandinavia, where you do go through the 24-hour of light or of dark. It's difficult to balance, the human psyche, and you have to kind of take some compensatory strategies with that. But that's a simple answer there. So embrace the light and embrace the dark, because the dark is it's just restful. It's the void. It's not a bad thing. It's not a wrong thing. So much gets like projected on it. Oh, that's like I said, those things get projected on it. Just get comfortable with both. Enjoy both. I'm going to bring Wendy back in. Okay. Well, I had no idea how to answer that question, so I hope that made sense, because we just asked the light itself and just did a little channeling there. Absolutely. 2 more questions. Absolutely. Who are the Pleiadians, and how do you personally know if they exist or not? And how do you know for sure there may be a solar flare? Okay, you might have to give those back to me one by one. I see the Pleiadians as people who are living on those planets that comprise the Pleiades. It's 7 planets. It's also called the 7 Sisters. So that's what I was referring to as the Pleiades. I mean, it's astronomers have documented it's the closest planetary system to us, I believe. I'm not great at astronomy. I know very little about astronomy, so certainly happy to be corrected if I don't have that right. So what was part 2 of that question? Because there were 3 parts there. How do you know for sure there may be a solar flare? Well, no one can know anything with certainty. It's a personal belief that there is going to be this amazing, great flash of light. I have heard it from my guides. My spiritual teacher has heard it with great detail. I have heard it from hundreds of different spiritual teachers, psychics. There's just been a lot of conversation around it. And guess what? We'll all get to see. We'll all get to experience it together, and what happens, and what the changes are from that, or if it doesn't happen and becomes a non-event, we'll get to know that too. Time will tell. My personal belief is we'll be incredible flash of light that will do what I described. And I think there was a middle question in there. I think it was a 3-parter in there. I think I got 1 and 3. I think I might have missed 2. So my apologies. Oh, okay. And then the Palladians, just how do I personally know if they exist or not? Well, I have a wonderful friend who recalls multiple past lives in the Pallades. And she's a wonderfully connected channel. We've had multiple past lives together. So I guess you can say I personally know a Palladian.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me here and for the great questions.
Yes, yes. Thank you for being back. And thank you, the listener, for listening. Thank you, Miss Wendy Rose Williams. And hopefully, I can have you back one of these days.
Sounds great. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye
And
now.
remember, everybody, ye are all God.
Ye are all gods.
You are one with this network.